Hello, and welcome to another episode of Manifesting with Feng Shui. I'm your host, Christina, and I am so grateful to be here with you today. So far, season 8 has been just an incredible season. We're here with producer Logan. Logan, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. I know. I have Gabrielle. I'm going to introduce her in just a second. We've had several guests in the studio already. How are you feeling so far this
I really
season?
love the energy. I love your energy with the guests. I love all the questions. It's been great. And Gabrielle, I've heard a ton about you, so I'm very excited to hear this episode.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to introduce you. Hi, Gabrielle.
Hi, Christina. I've heard a lot about you too, Logan. So I'm so excited to be here with you, Christina.
Oh my God. Amazing. So let me just dive right in. You know, I did kind of want to start with this. I said there's 8 billion people on the planet, which, by the way, David G., who connected us originally, always talks about that. I can't even wrap my brain around the fact that there's 8 billion people on this planet. That's like, we're a grain of sand. But anyway, 8 billion people on this planet, and less than 1% of them can say that they have sat at a breakfast table with Oprah or sat in a conference room writing meditations with Oprah and Deepak Chopra. Have you ever thought about that?
Wow. I haven't until I read the intro for this. But when I read it, I was like, that is kind of cool.
It's kind of cool. And then when I say that out loud, I'm like, what are the chances that in a world of 8 billion people, we have been connected?
That we have been connected really via David G. just sharing my posts on his Instagram stories and you seeing them and following me. It really is the positive power of social media.
I mean, this story goes so far back. Dr. Wayne Dyer, right before he passed, I feel like his energy was extremely expansive. And he introduced me to Hay House Radio, which, by the way, Gabrielle Forleo, you've worked at the Chopra Center for over 17 years. So you've literally stood on stage, the same stage as not only Deepak Chopra, but my spiritual teacher, Gabby Bernstein, Dr. Wayne Dyer, David G., all of these people, this was your world for 17 years. Am I right?
It sure was, traveling all over the world, teaching yoga, teaching meditation, doing onstage speaking. What a wild and magnificent ride. And yeah, getting to see such amazing speakers and Dr. Wayne Dyer, even just a month maybe before he passed away, at the Chopra Center, just so radiant in his energy and amazing experiences. And I feel so blessed and lucky.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that you saw him walking down the beach in his beret and that hat that he used to wear. And I just feel so Dr. Wayne Dyer introduced me to Hay House Radio. And when I tuned into Hay House Radio, that's when I learned who David G. was. And I really found meditation through him. And come to find, I was just following him on social media and I started to follow you. And he's a father to you. And if he's the king of meditation, you're the queen of meditation. I just love tuning into your guided meditations. And that's originally what really started my work with you, was just the abundance mindset and your ability to help people to overcome self-limiting beliefs by literally reprogramming your brain, but in a way that just feels so easeful and seamless. And when you believe that anything is possible, then the sky becomes the limit. And so what makes you such a unicorn in this space, you are my personal coach. You've been my personal coach for over 2 years. I would not be where I am in my life and business if it weren't for you. One of the things that also makes you special is that when you took over the retreats department at the Chopra Center, retreats sales increased by 400%.
Yeah, I took over onstage sales, the onstage sales presentation, and sales increased by over 425%. And it was incredible to watch. It really went from more of an informational, dates and details presentation to a good old storytelling session where they didn't even know that it was a sales session. And that really is the key to it all, I think.
I love that. We're going to get into that today too, because it's so many people who tune in this podcast, other feng shui practitioners, spiritual entrepreneurs, women in business who deserve to make amazing money. What do you always say? You help people make
F tons of money. Can I say
that? I don't know. Can we say it on this? I'm with a new agency now.
You guys can say whatever you want to say here.
I help women make fuck tons of money on the internet. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So
do you help men make fuck tons of money on the internet?
I have one male client, Graham. You'll see him later.
All right. Yeah. Cool.
My copy speaks to women, but all are welcome.
All right.
Absolutely. She is brilliant. She's a genius. She's taught me like that was the thing. It's like I thought I was selling on Instagram when like I was like talking face to camera, and Gabrielle's like, that's not selling. You're just like teaching people and just talking. So thank you for teaching me how to sell.
Yes. And you know what's funny, Christina, the first money mindset program you did in mine, the money mindset makeover, I actually recorded that in Austin in 2021 at my first business retreat for my business. I wrote that entire program and actually recorded it here. So like full circle moment right now.
And you just had dinner with your old boss from the Chopra Center here in Austin.
Yeah. Like it's all stringing together per usual.
I love that. I love it per usual. Of course, synchronicities. So for listeners, for viewers, I want you to know that today, Gabrielle is going to teach you the art of how sharing your authentic story can help you make fuck tons of money on the internet. She also has helped me to literally rewire my brain with her rituals and practices that she's taught me. Just thankful for you. And so we're going to give you some insight into how that works. I am kind of a nerd when it comes. So I teach manifesting with feng shui, right? And I do believe that there's a part of manifesting with feng shui that reprograms your subconscious, and there's reasons why it works. You have to be very intentional. Like your job is to set your intention, do the feng shui adjustment, and then allow the universe to fill in the details. All of those things, I do believe, like work with your brain in some way, as well as its energetics. My work with you has like literally taught me we can create new neural pathways in our brains so that because our brain is so hardwired to keep us safe, we can actually like overcome some of those limiting beliefs. So I love some of your strategies. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well today. But like first, I really wanted to dive into when we talk about stories that make you money. Can we kind of go back a little bit before we kind of get into how people can make fuck tons of money on Instagram or on the internet? Can we talk a little bit about how did this journey of storytelling start for you, especially when you were at the Chopra Center and things like that? And how did that even start to generate 425% increase of sales?
Yeah, great question. You know, so I will say that I was the all-time leader in sales for the global brand Chopra, for Deepak Chopra. And one of the most amazing things that he taught me, of course, is about brain science. I think Deepak Chopra is an absolute genius. You know, he's really like a scientist at heart. He is a true genius. And he talked a lot about just like the way that the brain actually receives information. And so I, in sales, became very aware that really humans learn best through storytelling, right? We as humans are storytellers. We pass down, traditions, information, our most sacred information through stories. Like the most famous books in history, they're essentially storytelling books, right? And sales is ultimately, if you don't overcomplicate it, it really is telling good stories that make people see like, oh, she has the solution to the problem that I have. And so in our sales presentations previously on stage, we were just getting up there and doing what most people do, what they think selling is, which is giving information. So telling people when the next retreat was, what the, how many days, what the price was. And then sure, some people would buy. But what I found a lot more effective was to go up on stage and do more of an experiential presentation that involved movement, intention setting. And then I chose 3 very specific stories to tell on stage that were kind of funny, but also on some level, I knew at least mostly like 99% of people would connect to. Because the thing I find is like, usually in sales, people tell story for themselves, but if you start telling stories for the people in the audience, you will be so much more successful.
So, okay, you shared vulnerable stories that people could relate to. And then you, of course, you teach us, I say us, like, cause you have a bunch of people in your programs and clients, and I'm one of your clients. So you've taught me, especially, to also bring it back to that person as well. But like, what were the 3 most vulnerable stories that you would share on stage? Like literally, like Gabby Bernstein would speak, and then you would go on stage right before Deepak would go on stage, because he was like, of course, the main event. Like people were there to see him, right? But you would kind of go in between. Am I getting this right?
I would go in between. I was a little bit of like a, perfect slice of cheese in the sandwich.
You are the perfect slice.
And one thing I would say is the first thing I would do is get up and get people moving, right? Because people can really only sit for 20 minutes receiving information before your brain actually loses the capacity to retain what people are saying. And so I would get people up, I would get them dancing, I would get them moving, breathing, and get them laughing a little bit. And that really does make people like you, because ultimately, honestly, we just buy from people that we feel safe with, we feel comfortable with, that we like. And so I tried to get people laughing in the beginning, telling a really funny story. But the 3 stories were essentially stories chosen to prove that I was some version of the embodiment of the outcome that they desired. And really the embodiment of the 3 programs that we were selling. And so I chose to tell a story ultimately about how I found my job with Chopra, which was all about following signs and synchronicities, your internal nudges, how I got hired at Chopra. And then one story about my health journey and losing 70 pounds and getting really sick with the bacteria in Costa Rica, and then essentially turning that into like the best thing that ever happened with my health journey, and my upbringing ultimately from not having money and growing up on, government food stamps and living in a basement to having, living in Southern California and being able to, buy $1 million home myself.
I love all of those stories. And I think we can all relate at some level to all of those. Gosh, I feel like, how do we like push past, like I try on some level, it feels good to me actually to share where I came from and like that I didn't come from a lot of money, and that like this is why I wanted to like share the manifesting wisdom of feng shui, because I do feel like it's important. And I just also feel like it feels more real to me and authentic to share that part of myself. Losing 70 pounds. I've had like a weight loss journey as well in the past 3 years. And it's like, it can be so difficult, I feel like, to like expose those parts of ourselves, because I think there's a little bit of ourselves that we just want to be like, look at me, here I am, I'm on the other side of it. But really what people want to hear is like, but where were you before that? And how did you get to where you are? And like really spend a little bit of time in like that uncomfortable space of like, well, this is what I was thinking, feeling, doing when like things were really hard. How did you feel about sharing those stories? How did you overcome, like, did you ever have any limiting beliefs around sharing those things publicly? Like, how do you think that all that?
I don't know if it's like the Aries rising energy, but to be totally honest, and, I was also teaching yoga for almost 15 years in front of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, right? So I am really comfortable on stage, and I never really felt too exposing telling those stories. I do feel like the number one quality to be successful in business, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, is you really do need to love yourself regardless of what people think about you. And one thing I learned really quickly working for Deepak is he could give the most amazing talk of all time, like Oprah Winfrey on stage, Wayne Dyer on stage, giving the best talk ever. And I had to read the reviews, and I will just say 10 people are always going to not like you in a room of 500. Yeah. So how I learned, I think, not to be too scared of telling the stories is just, if I was myself authentically, then I knew it would land with the people who are meant to hear it. And I think just being so many years in, the self-help and speaking spirituality industry, I just really got to see that, again, in a room of 500 people, there's always going to be 10 that don't love what you're saying. And so you have to be okay with that. And I just made peace with that. And as long as I was being myself authentically, authentic exposure, if you will, then I knew I was in the right place at the right time.
Okay. I actually love this. Like, I don't even think you meant to set up this next question. But okay. When I first met you and I first enrolled in your abundance mastermind, it was like, I was a feng shui practitioner, of course, and I was like, I want more abundance, right? And I was like, let's do this. And I signed up for this program thinking I was going to like come out of it making more money and all these things were going to happen, which eventually did. Don't get me wrong. But what I realized was there were so many other facets of my life that I wasn't happy with. And there were parts of myself that I didn't love, places where I didn't feel confident. And like, ultimately, when you invest in your self-worth, you do increase your net worth. And I mean, I've experienced that myself, but I didn't really get that until I took the Abundance Mastermind with you. So I kind of wanted to shift into, this is all about stories that make you money, right? So what about stories we tell ourselves? I really think that this is truly life-changing revelation that I had in working with you when you had us start to write our daily intentions. Because, I write intentions all the time as a feng shui practitioner. But when you introduced this journaling, and you have your own journal, the Money Mind Shift Journal, you introduced the science behind it and why it works. I mean, it was mind-blowing. And actually, it wasn't just about the money that I started to manifest. It was so many different things in my life. Could you explain to us why this works, why reprogramming our brains and the stories we tell ourselves actually matter and eventually help us make more money?
100%. And I'm just so curious, Christina, like, what do you think is the biggest story that you shifted in our time working together about money? Like, what was a story that you had before the mastermind that like is no longer true for you, that you consciously became aware of and shifted?
I love your question. Thank you for asking me a question. So after the mastermind concluded, I remember realizing that I wasn't selling on Instagram, and I thought I was. And you and I had a call, and I was investigating, like maybe considering if I should hire a coach. I honestly had no idea people had business coaches. As a business owner, had no idea that was a thing at that point in my life. It was like, 2022, 2023?
2022, yeah.
And I remember you looked at me and I said, well, I would love to be like a full-time feng shui practitioner and make like six figures and things like that. And very not confident as I told you that. And you're like, that's possible. I was like, you're like, do you believe it's possible? And I was like, and that was weird because I was like, not really. I don't think it's not the way my business is structured right now. It's so not possible. And now here we are, 3 years later, less than 3 years later, and it's not only possible, but I'm doing it, making multiple six figures in my feng shui business.
And it's not even your full-time job.
And it's not even my full-time job.
So look at that. You shifted your story. And I think that's how it works, right? Is, the brain science behind that. The purpose of the journal is, when I worked at Chopra, my onstage talk was called The Power of Intention. And I talked a lot about, the way the brain functions and ultimately the power of intention. And I think a lot of times we set large, big, overarching intentions for our life in general, which are amazing and lovely. And then you can also get really specific on any given day in terms of harnessing your intention of what you want to see. And the brain science behind that is the reticular activating system. I don't know if you want me to talk about that now, but that really is the neuroscience behind why manifesting and intentions are so powerful, which is how you reprogram your story to be more aligned with what you actually want.
Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we tell ourselves, like in that example I gave you, like if I didn't think it was possible to make six figures in my feng shui business, then why would I move forward with any action steps towards it, right? It just was like I was my own limiting, like those limiting beliefs were blocking me. And that was the first step that I needed to overcome. And once I realized it was possible, I hired you as a one-on-one coach, and we did take practical action steps to make it a reality. But it's constantly, I feel like as an entrepreneur, it's like the mindset work goes hand in hand with like the practical, tangible action steps that we need to take.
Yeah, I will say, being an entrepreneur, I do think is like getting a black belt in self-development and spirituality, because it really like exposes everything that you need to work on from a mindset and energetics perspective. And I will say that I think 80% of success in business and entrepreneurship, life in general, really is mindset and energetics. And there's 20% that is the strategy. And you do really need both. Is the strategic element of a marketing plan, a sales plan, social media strategy. These things can be really, really helpful and impactful in your business. The way your offers are structured. I mean, simply by reorganizing your offer suite, Christina, and making a couple shifts and changes to how you were showing up online, like very tangibly, you made significantly more money. Mm-hmm. And then there's your mindset and energetics, what you believe. And so you really also needed to shift that story about how successful you could become. And when you do both of those things together, the strategy and the energetics and belief. I think that is when business and making money gets really fun.
That's what makes you such a unicorn in this space, because so let's tell a little quick story here. The beginning of 2025, Gabrielle and I started the year together on the Pacific coast of San Diego. Remember that? In Carlsbad? Is that where that hotel was?
Yes, in-person VIP weekend.
I did an in-person VIP weekend with you, Gabrielle, not knowing what the year of the snake was going to bring for me at all. And just knowing that every year I have the 12-month manifesting journey where I guide women through, well, men are welcome too, but mostly women have signed up for 12 months of working with me to go through all 9 areas of their life. And I was like, you know what? I just felt called to you've also added feng shui to your strategies.
I've sold myself with my own copywriting. It's fabulous.
I love it. Well, you're so good at it. But you were in the Quantum Leaper Mastermind, and I just feel like I've been practicing those methods alongside everyone in the mastermind. And I just felt so expansive. And I was like, I'm going to fly to California, get a VIP day with Gabrielle, sit there and really dream. We set intentions for the year. We sat at a beautiful restaurant overlooking the ocean. Do you remember this?
How could I forget? Of course.
I know. It was such a special moment because I was tears in my eyes because of how much my business has grown and the freedom it's given me because of you.
Well, that is just the essence of, my movement is, giving women in particular financial freedom to, live where they want to live, be, with who they want to be with, and live anywhere in the world and work anywhere in the world. And the fact that you feel like it's given you more freedom in your life to just have a life that's more in alignment with what you really want is just the best thing, because that's the essence of the movement.
So part of my story is so at one point we're sitting out by the fire pit, on the balcony area, and you're guiding me through a meditation before we actually dive into the copy. And you did this meditation where you're lifted me up, and 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? And it was just again, you are intertwining that visualization, that energetic work. And then also we sat and we wrote an email series, right? And we were able to explain kind of going back to stories that make you money. And I think we would like to give the listeners and viewers some actual practical things they could even do online today.
100%.
To, help not only build the community, but get people to buy, right? But ultimately, one of my favorite memories of going out to California in January was just standing at the ocean side. And just after we had done all the work, all the copy had been written, we knew the email series was done. We knew we were heading into a new year, 2025. And we just looked at each other, and you were just do you remember what you said to me, Gabrielle? What your intention was for what we had worked together? Do you want me just to finish telling?
Yes.
You're
yes.
I
feel like I said a lot.
Yeah. I'm going to say it and you're going to yes. But you were just now, we give it up to the universe, and we set the intention that those who could truly benefit from this program will feel called to sign up. And that's really the work you do. You're just you got to take the action, but then we also have to trust that for example, Jenny Shanks is the psychic medium, the spiritual medium that was here today. She's one of the people who signed up for the 12-month manifesting journey in 2025. And it's amazing.
Wow.
The universe just orchestrated, and now she's here in Austin, and we're having dinner with her tonight, and she was a guest on my podcast.
And we just wrote that email series in January, and look at all of.
So your magic is the strategy, but then also you also very much coach me through this, at least as a one-on-one client, but you also coach people through in your mastermind, your 6-figure year. Do you help guide people through I just know from your one-on-one as a one-on-one person, that's kind of your magic. How do you help guide people to also surrender, and what's that 80% energetics that you can help people with?
Yeah. Again, I think the 20% strategy really, really matters. I say all the time, I think spiritual people, healers, feng shui practitioners, Ayurvedic practitioners, yoga instructors, they have the best cereal ever, right? Their cereal's nutritious. It's made of the best ingredients. But generally speaking, their cereal boxes suck. And so nobody knows that they have the best cereal. And They just need a better box. And in that case, like that's really what we usually do is like first we start with getting your cereal box to communicate how amazing what you do actually is, because how you say things ultimately does really matter in terms of making more money in your business. And then the energetics part of it is, you can have the best cereal box with the most perfect marketing that visually looks incredible. But if you don't believe that it's working for you, if you don't believe that you're really good at what you do, if you're constantly questioning yourself, your value, your coaching, your pricing, it just essentially what happens is like things stay in this like squiggly wave state, right? And it can't like collapse down into the full potential that is possible in your business. And so I think it's about balancing those two things. What's on your cereal box, and then like knowing you have the absolute best cereal as well. And when you can do both of those things at once, it really turns into money magic. So I help my clients do both, and because both really matter.
I know, like one day you'll be guiding me like, okay, you need to do a belief dump. And it's like, like literally declutter some of those negative thoughts that just keep spiraling as an entrepreneur. And then like the next day you'll be like, looking at like Instagram caption that I have that I want to like roll out or whatever. And you kind of like help me with that. So I genuinely appreciate both sides.
I feel like people get stuck, especially entrepreneurs, they can get stuck in what they actually see. And again, your brain is an evidence finding machine. It is constantly on the run to go bring you proof of whatever it is that you've deemed important. And back to the reticular activating system, that little collection of neurons in your brainstem, it essentially acts as the filter between you and your conscious mind, and literally the million pieces of sensory data that you're exposed to in any given single 1 minute, right? And so it decides what you pay attention to and what you ignore. And if your brain as an entrepreneur is set for people aren't buying right now, or no one's buying this course, or I put up 2 story slides and no one has purchased in 24 hours, so nobody's going to buy, right? Like it's only going to bring you proof and evidence of that. And like, you don't even know, Christina, I had someone message me that they were thinking about buying your course this morning.
Oh,
and so you
love it.
But you would never know that.
No, I wouldn't.
Right? Because so many people are thinking about working with you and buying, but sometimes our own stories get in our way of ultimately showing up in expectation that sales and money and clients is on the way, right? And so you kind of like stop yourself in the process. And that's really, I feel like what I bring together is like the copy and the showing up as if it's happening.
Yeah, the mindset. Oh my gosh. And it's such an exercise. Let's give the listeners, let's give the viewers some tangible, practical steps that they can take, because I will tell you, true story. So we started working together one-on-one. After a full year cycle, I remember one of the actually motivating factors to work with you was that there was a luxury spiritual business retreat that I really wanted to go on. And it was in Nashville. And I was just like, my business cannot afford this right now. And I was so upset. I was like, I want to be there. I want to be her now. And you've taught me how to be her now in little ways, so then you can eventually become her. But, I started working with you, and what we did was you kind of mentioned like showing up on stories and posting 2 or 3 slides and not selling a program out is like unrealistic. Obviously, like you have to say it a million times, the same thing a million times. It feels like that at least, but you also have to say the right things a million times. And it's very uncomfortable because I think I'm a feng shui practitioner. I'm not a sales and marketing person, but actually, yeah, when you're an entrepreneur, you are in sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Like that's just, you have to accept that. And you've always said like, if you can't spend 45 minutes online on Instagram or whatever you call it, you have to understand that that's part of being a business owner, depending on how much you want to grow. I've surrendered to that. And
you're really good at it.
Well, thank you. So this is what my point was going to be. Here's the win. Thank you for bringing me back. So after about 9 months of working with you, maybe it was a whole year, I was able to go on the next retreat with that spiritual business retreat. It ended up being in Santa Fe, which was even better in regards to my astrocartography. Great portal, great spot.
We love that.
And it was a huge moment for me. And what happened was I went on that retreat. Of course, I did like the Cave of Brahma meditation that I teach in the Quantum Leaper Mastermind.
Which works, which I do every month, by the way. Christina's mastermind is the real deal.
It is. And what I will say, in conjunction with posting on stories consistently, even during the retreat, half the retreat hired me for a one-on-one feng shui consultation and literally paid for itself.
Because of your stories. Because of your Instagram stories.
I'm not kidding. And people were asking me on the retreat, like, wow, your Instagram stories, like, they're interesting. Like, what are you doing? So I'm gonna really up my stories game when this episode is coming out. So when you guys,
you're the stories queen.
You've taught me well, Gabrielle. So let's teach everyone who's listening and watching who wants to make fuck tons of money on the internet. You know, I know you have an actual program called Stories That Make You Money, but like, let's give a little insight into like the overarching, like how you do this. And how, and also watch Gabrielle, obviously. Watch her stories. She's very good at it.
Thank you. Well, I will just say, you know, Instagram in and of itself, I love because it really is a complete marketing platform, right? Like you can do client attraction all through your content, through reels. You can get new people in your world. And then on Instagram stories, you can like warm them up through the buyer cycle, right? It's where you get people to know you, understand what you do. And if you simply show up on Instagram stories with a little bit more intention, more people will buy from you. And that is just a fact. And so my Stories That Make You Money method is essentially there are 5 different story types that I post. On any given day, you know, Monday through Friday. And so the first is an activation or intention slide. This is really how you communicate the essence of your brand to your people. So I usually say like, hey, what's one thought or belief that your ideal client or buyer needs to shift right now, right? Like they're waking up in the morning. What do they need to hear that's going to shift their perspective about the day? And post that first thing on stories, because what I hear all the time is people don't know exactly what to post on stories. They don't know how to start their stories for the day. And so if you very simply just wake up in the morning, write a couple of sentences that your ideal client, your ideal buyer needs to hear to shift their mindset a little bit, that is in alignment with what you teach and your brand, there you go. There's your first story slide of the day. And then, of course, there are 4 more that really complete the emotional cycle of what people need to see and hear from you in order to invest money with you.
I love that you shared that first example because that's my favorite type of story to share. And this year,
it is the easiest. Don't stop there though.
Right. No, don't stop there. Certainly. Yeah, you're not going to sell out your programs just by doing that.
Some people think you will, but you won't.
Well, here's the thing though. I will say like, because I just feel like I've gone through some really difficult moments this year and it's just been really hard for me to show up, that I'll admit, like I have actually like taken a break from Instagram stories a little bit just because I feel, and thank you for helping me build a business where I can do that.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It doesn't rely on you showing up every single day you post.
So I will say that. And it's taken years to build and I'm grateful for it. But I know it's not like, I'm not going to like never show up again. Like that's not possible. But when I do show up, one of my intentions is like, I love posting those activating stories that like inspire your ideal client, your community, the energy updates, because I teach about like the universal energy with like the full moons and the new moons and different things. And it just makes me feel of service. And so what I feel like with your Stories That Make You Money methodology and the 5 different types of stories that you should be posting in order to sell out your programs and make fuck tons of money on the internet. The thing is, it's like, I really do feel like in general, those 5 different types of stories allow you the freedom to like express yourself in a unique way. Like I feel like you help people to express themselves in a way that feels authentic and aligned. I don't think we were all built with a sales mindset. I didn't know what sales and marketing honestly was and even the difference of it. Basically, you teach people exactly what that means, what that looks like, and how to show up more authentically, which I genuinely appreciate so very, very much.
Thank you. Well, I love it. And I will say just the one thing that you can practically do today is remember that 90% of people are viewing Instagram stories and Instagram in general on silent. And so if you aren't adding words, then it's like a silent movie with no information whatsoever. And captions really aren't enough because people are not going to wait for like 9 seconds for your captions to tell them what they're going to learn. And so if you simply start adding like a sentence or two on your stories to give context to what it is that you're talking about, you will instantly have more people interested in your stories. But I think it's the best place to show that you are the authentic embodiment of what you do, to simply share the stories that are already happening with your clients now. If you simply show up and talk about the clients you're already working with on a daily basis, give context to the story, add words that reflect what you're actually doing, like you will instantly make more money.
You're inspiring me to post on Instagram. I literally just got like a message from someone who's in the Quantum Leaper Mastermind right now. We're pretty fresh into it. It's only been a couple weeks. And she just messaged me on Instagram and she just said like, Christina, like, by the way, I did like a free presentation for a group of people, and she applied the manifesting wisdom of feng shui and signed a $20,000 contract. And she's like, yes, please, more of this. So then she joined my mastermind, and she messaged me on Instagram just this weekend, I guess it is. And she was just like, Christina, my home feels so much calmer, more peaceful, and I feel so much happier. And so like the wins are just beyond money, right? And so, for example, based on what you're saying, it's like what I've learned from you is even just taking a little screenshot of that person and like, you know, you can make it anonymous, taking a screenshot of like the $20,000 win or the feelings that they have just from like being only in the mastermind for 2 weeks, like the deeper inner peace and things. And then like you said, put context to that.
Share that really micro story. Share that micro story. And what does every story have? A beginning, a middle, and an end. So that what you just shared, I feel so much more calm and peaceful in my home. Okay, that's the end of the story, right? Like that's the result. So if you were to share that on Instagram, just simply add some context. My client came to me and she's already feeling more peaceful in her home. Now give them the context of the beginning. Next slide. She came to me just a year ago. When she walked in her house, she couldn't figure out why, but she felt totally unsettled and anxious. Now add the middle. What is it that you did with that client to create the result, right? So in our work together, what we focused on was X, Y, and Z. And like, look at her now, right? So humans learn through storytelling. So if you start to give your client wins context of a story, if you give it a beginning, a middle, and an end, not necessarily in that order, people can actually be like, oh, I think Christina could help me because when I walk in my house, I also feel unsettled or I feel anxious and I really want to feel settled and peaceful, or I really do want to make $20,000 out of nowhere, right? Like if you give your current client stories a little bit of context in that way, a beginning, a middle, and an end, like again, the brain can actually be like, oh, that's something you want. And we're going to pay attention to this because your brain is ultimately like your personal algorithm, right? Like, and it decides, the RAS literally decides what it's going to pay attention to and show you more of and what it's going to ignore and you're not going to see. And you can reprogram, believe it or not, your algorithm, both on Instagram and in life by simply being more specific, right? And so if people can see themselves in the way that you show up online, they'll naturally gravitate to want to buy from you. And you don't have to overcomplicate it. It doesn't need to be perfect, but just share your current stories, your current wins, your current client wins, and give it context. Give it a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Ooh, that's the art of it. And so like you were saying, you can do this about other clients, like in that example, like I'm sharing a client win, a client story, but you can also, you've taught me to do that even for myself.
Give it
right.
Because people want to see that you're legit, right? Like,
right.
And the quickest way, again, purchasing a purchasing process, generally speaking, especially when we're talking about intangible services, meaning like coaching and not like buying a deodorant at the grocery store, that's more of an emotional purchase. And so people want to feel like, oh, she's legitimate. Like she is the living expression of what she does. And so if you simply show up more and talk about your own wins and show proof to people that you're the living embodiment of what you do, then they much more easily buy. Like that's the essence of Yelp, right? Like people want to see proof that a restaurant's good before they invest their time and go. And so your Instagram stories is like your own personal 5-star Yelp review. If you show up in a way that you're showing that you are the embodiment of what you help your clients have.
It's like 5 years ago, I couldn't do this. But now because of X, Y, and Z, like here I am doing what maybe this person watching wants to be able to do. Right.
100%. And that's instant credibility. And, people will much more easily invest with you.
I love it. Well, Gabrielle, like we just kind of scratched the surface today, but ultimately, like you've just been just such an incredible gift in my life on just so many levels. I'm so grateful. When we first started working together, you were working at Chopra and you started your own side business as a content creator, a coach, like the programs that you were creating.
Yes, the meditation, guided meditation.
Absolutely. Our work together, it's just like we've both grown and blossomed together alongside each other. And I just feel really honored to be sharing this space with you today and just to call you my coach. I brag about you all the time and I will continue to. So
I feel so grateful for you, and your programs equally work. And I can't tell you how many times people have come to me just through viewing your stories. And I feel like you're always so giving and generous. And I'm just so grateful for you. And I think us connecting via Instagram stories, David G just sharing my posts on his stories, shout out to David G, is just proof that like the universe really is working in our favor. And I think the more we remember that, the more proof of that we will see.
It's like you always say, like the universe hasn't forgotten your file.
It hasn't forgotten your number. No, it hasn't lost your file.
No. And so it's actually going to orchestrate things far better than we probably ever could do on our own.
If you believe that's happening, it will show you proof of that.
I love it. And remember, you always say this too. I'm so excited for a new year, heading into the 2026 year of the horse with you. And it's just the beginning. I love you. Okay.
Love you too.
Everyone, I will see you next time where I'll help you design the life you deserve. See you soon.